Hello and welcome to Cork in Focus here on Unity TV. My name is Alan Gould. I'm joined today by Sinn Fein Councillor Thomas Gould, and obviously as you picked up, we are related, we're first cousins, but we'll be non-biased today. It's all about the television, okay? We're joined here today, we're in Knocknaheeny at St Vincents Hurling and Football and Camogie Club. We've asked Thomas to just have a chat with us to let the people of Cork know a bit about himself and obviously a bit about his career as a politician. So Thomas, thanks very much for taking time out of your schedule to talk to us. I suppose we'll start off with, how did you get involved in politics, or what was it that sparked you to get involved?
Well, first, Alan, thanks for having me on the show. You know, it's great. It's a great initiative, you know, to let people know what's happening, and I suppose give people a bit of history and background. I suppose from my own point of view, I always loved history. In school, my two subjects were history and maths, and I loved Irish history. And it's if you read Irish history, we have a great history. A lot of it is very sad. So from an early age, I was interested in it. And I suppose at the time, in the 70s and the 80s, when the armed struggle was going on in the north, and, you know, I suppose that motivated me, especially what was happening to people in the 6 counties, the way they were being treated, and the way they had been treated since the border, and since the separation of the 6 counties. So then what happened was, there was an election in June 1981, and there was a lady called Maureen Farrell, who ran on the H Block Armagh prison protest, and she ran in Cork North Central. Now at the time I was only 13, nearly 14, and a few cousins of mine were out canvassing for Maureen, and I went out and I just gave out leaflets, door-to-door dropping, and did the election. I stood outside of Knocknaheeny School handing out flyers. Now, unfortunately Maureen didn't get elected, but she got a fabulous vote, and at the time you had the hunger strikes, and it was a very passionate, a very sad time for Irish people and Irish Republicans, and you had Bobby Sands and the other 9 hunger strikers. And for anyone who knows anything about politics and Irish politics, that really motivated me. Now, to be honest, then I've always supported events, commemorations over the years. So, and then it's tied into my own club here, St Vincents, because at one time, GE underage teams used to be named after famous patriots or their areas.
That's right. I remember playing. I played for Vincents for a long time at underage and into adult, so the names were synonymous with Irish history.
Yeah, well, St Vincents under 15 team was always named Ballycannon. Yeah. And for your viewers who would know, Ballycannon is out in Kerrypike village, and there's a monument there that commemorates the 6 IRA volunteers that were murdered. Right. So that was the Vincents under 15 team, and our under 14 team then was Roger Ryan's. Now, Roger Ryan was an Irish Republican who was seriously injured trying to free other Republicans, and when he passed away, then the club named our under 14 team. So there was a fierce Republican, like you had Rory, Christopher Barra, who was the president of St Vincent's, who was a well-known Republican. And, you had a lot of people around the club who were very Republican-minded.
Okay.
But that was like, but it's probably an Northside thing too, because if you look down the road from us, our neighbours, the Pearshig, like on their crest, they have the red hand of Ulster, but they don't have the thumb. And when they set up the club, they removed the thumb to signify the loss of the 6 counties of Ulster.
Okay.
And that until Ireland is united, they won't have the full hand. And then you have the Glen Rovers, who have the black in their jersey, because they were founded in 1916, and when the rising happened and the murders were committed and Padraig Pearse and others were shot, they put black into their jersey to commemorate those. And then you've got Brian Dillon's and Delaney's, who are named after them. So it's a really Northside thing, you know.
So it's clear, I suppose, Thomas, that history has played a big part in your upbringing. But we'll bring it up to the present day. So in 2009, if I'm correct, you stood for your first time in the North Central area. And obviously, the rest is history, as they say, and you're still here.
Yes, the party approached me in 2008, and they said, would I go forward as candidate for Cork North Central? No, it had been 80 years since we had won a seat in Cork North Central, and it was really, we were up against it.
Okay.
And I won the last seat on transfers, the 5th seat. So No, we were delighted. We put in a huge effort. We canvassed for 10 months. You know, I had a fabulous team around me. Councillor Mick Nugent, who was an organiser at the time. Mick led the campaign with Kenneth Collins, my father Tony, my two sisters, Shannon and Noreen, and then my wife Michelle, who was coordinating things. So, and like the likes of Golly Flynn and John O'Callaghan and all these guys, like that's probably one thing in Sinn Féin too. The amount of voluntary effort are put in by people, unsung heroes behind the scenes, behind the likes of me. Like here I am, I'm talking to you and I'm on TV and everyone's looking at me, but it's the people who got me elected.
Well, that's, I suppose, Thomas, another point, right? So we have kind of your background and your interest, right? But for the people watching who you represent, right, what is it that you face problems for them? You are their voice in City Hall, right? So what is it that you're actually finding the problems that you're getting from people on the ground?
See, the huge issue now today, there's a number of big ones. The big one I find is homelessness and housing. It's just, do you know the most frustrating part for me as a councillor who was elected? Well, on my maiden speech in 2009, I highlighted the homeless crisis. And Fianna Fáil, Fianna Gael and the Labour Party attacked me. I'll never forget it because it was my first night as a councillor. And I said, ye don't understand what's happening out there. We have a crisis in housing. And they said that I was exaggerating it and I was trying to create a mayhem and I was trying to upset people. And I put forward a solution then. So number one is we knew what the problem is. You see, a lot of these other parties, they're not on the ground. I'm on the ground. Sinn Féin councillors, we're on the ground. We know what's happening. We can see the problems before they actually happen. And in 2009, when I forecast that, people ridiculed me. And then when they did finally realise we had a huge issue in housing, we put forward proposals to solve it. Like I put forward a proposal in 2011 to borrow €200 million to build 1,300 houses on land that Cork City Council already owns. Now, to be fair, Michael Ahern and Dennis O'Flynn of the Labour Party broke ranks and supported me and Sinn Féin and the other independents, and we won the vote.
But Thomas, the other side of that then is, right, and I'll put it to you, we now know in 2017 that there is a homeless crisis, right? But where's all the money going to come from that you're talking about getting houses? Where's the money going to come from?
You see, I tell you why I get so frustrated as a councillor. Last November, the European Investment Bank opened an office in Dublin, and they have billions to loan. Cheap loans, cheap money for building infrastructure, housing, schools, hospitals, these things. I wanted to get that money off them in 2011. We could have got it off them in 2011. But Phil Hogan, who was the Minister of Environment, wouldn't allow us to do it. No, we have no. When Simon Coveney then came in after Andy Kelly, he decided that we could do it. And it goes down to anti-Sinn Féin in government. If we come up with a very good idea, what happens is they won't implement it, because what that says then to the people is that Sinn Féin do have solutions. Sinn Féin have ideas. And like here we are now in Cork. If we had built 1,300 houses in 2011, which I wanted to do, and Cork City Council supported.
So it was actually, the government of Dublin actually didn't...
Yeah. Well, I actually won the vote in City Council, and it was central government and Fianna Gael and Labour Party in particular stopped it. And we would have no housing crisis in Cork. And people come up to me every day, Alan, and they're on about housing, and families are staying in hostels and B&Bs, they're staying with parents, grandparents, and they're saying, Tommy, what are you doing to fix it?
But then at the other side of it, Thomas, right, like you mentioned that in 2011 you put forward a proposal, right? Now, obviously, what happened, bringing it again to current day, to what happened down to St Anne's with the fire, like some people have said publicly that they're glad it's gone because of the massive abuses that went on there for years. So if your suggestion was taken on board, and just use that as an example, do you think that we would not be in the position we're in now in Cork?
Well, I think I can say categorically to you and to your viewers that if our proposals had been followed, we'll have no homeless crisis and we'll have no housing crisis in Cork.
Okay.
And I'm not just talking about people who are on social welfare. I'm talking about homeless people, social housing, private affordable housing so people can buy their own home at an affordable price, and also private rented accommodation, because not everyone wants to buy a house. What we proposed was a mixed tenure of housing, apartments and complexes. And the other huge issue in Cork at the moment is student accommodation. And what we had down in St. Kevin's, you see the thing about it, for years I was looking for St. Kevin's to be turned into a mixed tenure housing and apartments. And I couldn't get support. And 6 weeks before it was burned to the ground, I was inside Cork City Council and I asked for a meeting with CIT, UCC, the HSC and Cork City Council to come together to develop a plan. 6 weeks beforehand. And I was so frustrated. It was the first time I ever considered giving up politics the night St. Kevin's burned, because of all the suggestions and proposals we're making. And then you're looking at it and you feel, and people are saying, Tommy, why aren't they listening to you? Tommy, why aren't they doing things?
And do you think, Thomas, right, so again, I'm speaking on behalf of the people that are watching. I was telling somebody during the week that we were doing the interview, and they just said, would you do me one question? Ask him one question, right? In your opinion, is Sinn Féin now, in 2017, the Sinn Féin that you joined in 2009, on their ethos, their policies, and what they tend to implement if they get the government?
Well, when you look at Sinn Féin, since the foundation of the party, going back to the very start, to where we are now, we've evolved over time.
Okay.
And when you look at the troubles and the fight that took place for in the north for 30 years, you know, obviously we've changed. Like when Bobby Sands stood for election and we saw him getting elected and people looked at it, is there another way? So obviously Sinn Féin has dramatically changed. But the couple of core principles are, we want a 32-county united socialist republic.
But some
which
people,
goes
Thomas,
back
would say
to Padraig Pearse and the proclamation. What you read in the proclamation is what we're still about.
I agree with you, but the other side of it is, right, at the moment, now in Cork, ye, as the City Council, cannot get money from central government. Yeah. So where's the money going to come from for the other 6 counties?
Well, you see, if you use that argument, you can look at the reunification of Germany, which was a enormous project compared to unification of Ireland. And when you look at the 6 counties, you see, Sinn Féin TDs and MLAs and MPs have looked for years for the breakdown of funding and tax that's being collected in the north. And you always hear this saying, the north costs a fortune to run. Well, why have they never given us the figures? Like, that is the question. Why is the English government never once, under all the questions and all the proposals we made, put down on paper what it costs to run the 6 counties and what they bring in? Like, we know the 6 counties, like the 26 counties, we have good businesses. There are there's a lot of outside companies after coming in. There's a lot of investment in Ireland, especially with Brexit coming on board. Like this, and that's, I suppose that's another topic we touched on. So I don't think money is a red herring that's being used. And what I would say to anyone who says, what about the cost of it? You show me the figures and I'll debate it with you.
So, Thomas, finally on the political side of... No, you're fine. Finally on the political side of it, right? Why did you get involved in politics? Taking away your party that you're affiliated, why did you stand up and say you answered the call, to put it mildly, that Sinn Féin National System? Why did you go into it? What did you feel you could achieve?
Well, I have to be honest, Alan. I think the Northside has been treated very badly, has been forgotten about. It's been a disgrace. When I was in the council, I asked the question one time, how many state organisations are in Cork, and how many are on the south side, and how many are on the north side? And I think it works out, there's 31 on the south side and there's 5 on the north side.
Back before you stood for election?
When I was elected, I think about 2010, 2011, I asked the question. The only thing we have in the north side is we have the prison, we have the army barracks, we have the revenue, which only moved a few years ago to the north side. Yeah. We have the orthopaedic hospital and forgetting one. So most of the infrastructure, why is there no college in the north side? You know?
Well, you could argue, Thomas, like that, having went to Terence McSweeney Community College myself, there's a grand facility down there now in regards to the St. John's Central College. So there is some development on the north side, and it obviously brings us...
And then I tell you now, if you look at the amount that's being spent in the north side in education, and you look at the south side of the river, it just doesn't correlate. Okay. It just simply doesn't. And one of the reasons I went forward to be a politician is because I know for a fact, you look at all the infrastructural projects, look at the roads in Douglas, the ring roads, all right around. Why don't we have a northern ring road? We were promised it 20 years ago and we still don't have a northern ring road. And what that means is you have articulated trucks driving through Knocknaheeny, Farnree, Blackpool, right?
Yeah.
They don't have articulated trucks driving through the housing estates in the south side. Do you know why? It wouldn't be allowed. And then we're trying to promote business. If you're trying to develop a business, we're haunted. We have Apple computers here. We are haunted, right? But how many other companies have set up in the north side? They're all setting up Little Island, the south side of the river. And if the reason they're not coming up here is we have no infrastructure. Like, we need to have more college graduates. We need to have the infrastructure to get more business up here. And what I'm sick and tired of officials, both locally and nationally, just forgetting about us. Because, and let's call it a spade a spade. I'm from Knocknaheeny, I'm from a working class area, right? Working class areas have been forgotten about. There's a lot of talk about regeneration and stuff like that. But
well, that'll bring me on to my next point, Thomas, right? Obviously, the regeneration project of the Northside includes Mayfield, the Glen, Knocknaheeny. As a proud man from Knocknaheeny like yourself, it's not going to be fixed overnight, right? But in your own personal opinion, when it comes to the regeneration projects of these areas that you just mentioned, why do you think that it's taken so long?
you see, Alan, you have people in Dublin in the Department of Environment trying to dictate how to regenerate an area.
Okay.
They're destined to fail.
Right? So you reckon it's the people in the offices who don't know what's going on?
Can I say, no, there's bureaucracy and officials who are running the show, and that's why, can I say, no, regeneration is destined to fail. And the reason is they're putting in money into capital projects, but they're not putting it in. Do you know Cork City Council has 9,000 houses, and we have 9 housing officers. So that means you have 1 person for every 1,000 houses. According to a UCC report that they've done, the figure should be 1 to 500. But it should be closer to 1 to 350 for areas like Knocknaheeny, the Glen and Mayfield, where you have a high concentration of social housing. In actual fact, I proposed it should be 1 to 250. But that means Cork City Council then will have to take on 27 more housing officers.
Okay.
So the Department of Environment is spending millions in infrastructure, building houses and stuff like that in regenerating areas. We don't have any guards on the street because the guards have been, guard numbers have been slashed.
I'll stop there.
I just made the point about regeneration.
I'll stop there and I'll tell you why, right? I just want to move on to another topic.
Okay.
What you're going to say, we will be doing live and pre-recorded shows, okay, to do and focus on this. So we will be tackling these problems. We will be contacting our representatives in Cork, Northside, Southside, and the TDs that are representing us in the dial. So we'll just park that for a second, Thomas.
So my point of view is regeneration about buildings is about building communities.
Okay.
And unless you have housing officers, guards, education, all tied in, it just won't work.
So, Thomas, in the last couple of minutes that we have, obviously we're here at St. Vincents, which is probably 90% of your life, right? So very quickly, if you could just give us an overview as to what it is that you're doing here. I know you're the chairman of the club and you're the vice chairperson of the Camogie club. What else do you do in your personal time, shall we say?
Well, I suppose just to give a little history, I got involved with the club. There was a councillor, God rest his soul, Dave McCarthy. Yeah. A lot of your viewers will remember him.
Of course, yeah.
You trained under Dave yourself, you know, and he got me involved in hurling football with St. Vincents. And I came up here and I loved it. And what happened then, I played for years. Like, I'm 49 now, and I've been involved with the club over 40 years. And when I stopped playing, like, I've been coaching teams. I coached my first team at 18, so I'm coaching teams over 30 years as well. And I love it. Yeah. Like, I'm here tonight now. It was great. The Cork minor Camogie team were playing Waterford out there in the minor shield. Yeah,
that's great to have that, Thomas, as well. After I know you said about this stuff that doesn't happen in the north side, but like you name another club that can get that, you know, that's a great attraction.
But the reason for that, then, Alan, is because we have a man here, Vincents Stokes, who runs this complex on a voluntary basis, and we give our complex out to everyone, free of charge, with the exception of the all-weather pitches. All the local primary schools, the secondary schools, the colleges, like the Cork Camogie, we don't charge them because we want to bring people up to Knocknaheeny to show what St. Vincent's Hurling Football Club has and say, here, look at, like, because a lot of people have such a bad image in the north side of Cork City, and what we do by events like tonight, people come up here and people say to me, you have fabulous facilities, and everything up here is voluntary.
Yes.
And I tell you, I don't want to be chairman of the club. I really don't.
How do you find time for it all, like, very quickly?
You see, if you're in the GA and politics, like, people say to me, how do you mix both? But it's the same thing. Politics and GA are the same thing.
Okay.
And, like, I was down there training the junior hurlers there before we came up. We were at a match last night, the under-15 boys.
You can still poke a ball in, yeah?
Yeah, well, you see, I'm very lucky. My wife is the secretary of the Camogie club and she still plays. My 2 daughters play with the club. So when we come up to Vincents Field, we come up as a family, you know? Yeah. And that, I know not everyone has that, but we're very lucky because...
It's a tradition.
My wife does the post, because she plays on Gould with the Camogies, with the junior A's, and when I'm up with the boys, she stands with the guy and she talks to him and has the slitters ready, and my daughter Aoife then is pucking the balls back, and like my dad washes all the jerseys for the club, voluntary, and all the guys caught the house collect them. And that's the one great thing about the GA, whether you're a parish in Kerry Pike or whether you're not Knocknaheeny, is the community.
The GA is the GA.
Yeah, and I tell you, Alan, don't get me wrong, there's days when I'm tired and I'm not able and I'm cranky, but I love it up here, and I love the people up here.
Well, Thomas, I suppose we're after running out of time here now, so I really appreciate you having a chat. I hope our viewers have got some insight into the life of Sinn Fein councillor Thomas Gould. We have enjoyed our time here speaking to him, obviously at St Vincents Hurling Football Club. So until the next time, for Cork in Focus, it's Alan Gould for Unity TV, signing off.